think I think let's start off just now, guys, because we're good on time. And today we are gonna go to the industry analysis of our case, right? And as you understand, this industry is it something like let's compare the industries for a second. Let's take something like fashion industry and shipbuilding and oil and gas and also let's take airline industry, right? Few different industries. Now, if you look at these ones, what do you think that is susceptible to changes very quickly and needs to change quite rapidly with the environment?
The fashion industry.
Yes, that's correct. And then the next one would be?
The airlines.
Yes, and that's mainly because of the technologies as well as health, safety, environmental regulatories as things coming, new things come on board. And then when you look at things like oil and gas, right, shipbuilding, you see these investments they're big investments, and it does take a very long time. The life cycle is quite long, okay? And if you see in the oil and gas industry, we will do a budgeting cycle goes on for about 75 years. Can you switch off can you mute your mic, please? Thank you. So when it comes to our industry, how long do you think these investments take place generally?
Years.
Correct. It does take about 30 plus years, right? Because our product, which is wood, the forestry, even if you plant today, it does take quite some time for it to grow. So it does take 30 plus years, okay? So bearing that in mind, let's go to our industry analysis. So I'm just looking at the industry overview, okay? And as you can see, this is quite an interesting cycle because as individuals we get involved in this industry as well as forestry is part of it, and then we do have the companies getting involved as well. And nowadays, we have got regulatory requirements coming in for companies who are using basically polluters, so to speak. That's somebody like oil and gas, even in the airline industry. There is quite a bit. They are polluters, and they are forced to purchase carbon credits or get into projects that will become, where the company becomes carbon neutral, right? Now, in this case, there is definitely a resource recycling that happens, right? This is this industry. Now, many years ago, if you look at 50 plus years ago, we did not have so much focus into forestry management, and so on. However, of recent past, this has become quite important. And it becomes quite important even from an individual's perspective, because it's important for us as individuals since it has direct impact on us. Okay? So can you summarize that? Can somebody summarize that bit for me, please, so that, you can understand what is this industry, at a high level, what is this industry all about?
The first point is that it's a long-term investment. The
Yes.
investment is 30 plus years.
correct. Yes, and also there is definitely where individual corporations are particularly in this cycle. This industry is kind of a cycle, and all of us contribute to it in one way or the other, right?
Yes.
So that's an important part that you need to consider as well. Okay. So now then we go into the sustainable forestry carbon cycle, right? I'll give you a second to just review this and kind of get an understanding what this is all about. As you can see, we are looking at healthy forest store carbon. So that is the key thing. Now, we want to have healthy forests, and our company is in the forestry management, forestry industry. So how does it work? You also have cars, factories, and other industries emitting all kinds of polluted items into the atmosphere, right? And that certainly has a negative impact in our atmosphere. Now we do with wood. Another thing is we do have wood products, right? And there is a huge number of wood products that is manufactured, right? And this is increasing more and more, right? And this does impact our forests because, well, it's going to dwindle. And if so what we're saying is the reduction of forests do have an impact directly into the atmosphere, which certainly has a very, very negative impact on us as human beings, right? And another thing that has been discovered is this bioenergy aspect of it. So instead of using fossil fuel energy, we can use the bioenergy. That's another discovery that has been made, and there is a lot of emphasis on that as well. Right now, this particular slide is showing us the cycle again of how we can use the forest for how the companies use the forest and what the forest actually gives us in return, right?
So bioenergy means, bioenergy means using wood to produce energy?
Yes, so there is a way. So we will go to the next slide. We will discuss more about it because we need to discuss, and I have felt that our knowledge in that area was kind of limited, so we need to discuss a little bit more. I'll come to that. Right?
Okay.
In this case, in summary, what we're saying is the wood or the forest are an integral part of a human being, right? We cannot survive without it, but we ourselves, because of our increasing population as well as our consumption, right? We have an insatiable appetite to consume X amount of things, right, as human beings. So because of that, we are using more and more forest products and utilizing the forest land, which has a negative impact. Okay, so let's go to the next one. This gives you a kind of an overview of what type of machinery that is used, right? And you can see this. I particularly like this guy, the tree hugger. It looks really funny, but this is the kind of massive machinery that they are using now, and they're investing in these now because they're moving away from the manual labor. So it has positive and negative effects as well. Now, the positive effects, of course, it's a health, from a health HSE point of view, it ticks all the boxes. From an economic efficiency perspective, it will tick all the boxes, right? But on the other hand, it could also just clear off X amount, X acres of forest just like that at a very quick pace. Now, if a human being was to do it, it's going to take a very long time, right? So that's the other aspect of it. So again, management of the cutting of forest needs to be managed quite carefully, right? Now, when we look at the transportation, again, we've got heavy machinery. What it means is the investment that goes into this machinery is significant, right? So the reason for me to show you these pictures was to kind of get an idea. This is the kind of equipment that you're working with, right? Now, if you're looking at an airline industry, we're looking at the aeroplanes, right? And we are looking at a lot of IT systems and so on and so forth to back up. Now, in this case, we are looking at a lot of heavy machinery. Right? And we also look at the transportation part. Still they use a lot. You can see the way they kind of transport the logs in the river, in the waters, right? Using the water. So water, again, is used as a transportation mechanism. So it has been used for many years, and still they use it, and they say it's one of the best ways of transportation. Right? Any questions here?
Nothing.
Fine.
Yeah. So this is again some of the pictures that will show you what are we dealing with when it comes to forest. This is an emphasis on the U.S. forestry, and you could see nearly 60% of the forest land is owned by individuals, right? And I'll come to the reasoning behind it as well, because the taxation surrounding it is fantastic, okay? And there is also, we talk about the forest, the amount of, so 751 million acres of forest land in the U.S., and they show it they look at the U.S. map, and so this is the kind of states that it's covering, right? So it shows that the U.S. is kind of heavily into increasing their forests, okay? Another country, will come to it, that is heavily into increasing their forests is Ireland, okay? So we'll come to that one as well. So this is a very, very interesting, when I did my research on this industry, I found this quite interesting, right? The top 10 countries with highest deforestation: Brazil, Indonesia, Russia, Mexico, right? PNG, Peru, right? So let's look at Brazil and Indonesia, right? If you look at Brazil and Indonesia, and this particular company, Wood could become a consultant or work with companies in these countries, right, to manage deforestation. And they could really, now the companies, if you look at these countries, Brazil, Indonesia, Mexico, sorry, there's a lot of disturbance. Right, thank you. So Brazil, Indonesia, Mexico, I'm just picking these three countries because there are a lot of Western countries that go into these countries for manufacturing purposes, right? So again, please take down notes as I talk, because these are some of the key things that you can note down. Because these countries, if you as a company, a Western company, go into these countries to manufacture, and you are again you will be a polluter of some sort, right? And then because there's a lot of what you can do is when you are being evaluated in your home country, right, of the activities that you have been doing. Let's say you're based in Europe, right, and manufacturing in Mexico and Brazil and in Indonesia, right. In order to set off those activities, because they're emitting quite a bit of carbon into the atmosphere, you can buy carbon credits, right? So this wood company can make these guys as clients of theirs, prime clients, because what would need to do is to, like I mentioned before, identify what their clients need, right? So they are in a good position to not only sell carbon credits, but also even go into projects partnering with these companies, right? So because now most of the companies need to provide, it's not a regulatory requirement in certain countries, but in others it is, where you need to basically provide your sustainability report or what you have been doing, right? And how you have been contributing to the society. Are you a good corporate citizen? The Global Reporting Initiative, the GRI, we come to that in a little while, it emphasizes on these, right? This kind of reporting. Now, for you as a company that's manufacturing in these countries, you are in a good position to kind of, instead of doing things on your own, the CSR activities or anything related to forestry, you could also partner with these, partner with a specialist like wood, right? Who will give you a lot of, because they're experts, so you don't have any issues. These guys are the experts, so basically you can partner with them for any other project. Okay. Then you look at, I've looked at the Amazon forest, again, done some research here to see, what are the things, what are the events, what are the issues that really led to this deforestation, etc., right? So the colonists began establishing farms within forests via slash and burn method. So that was in the 1960s, right? So a lot, you can see this not only in the Amazon, but also in a lot of other countries. You could see the same kind of events happening, right? 70s, construction began, right? And the 90s and 2000s, what has happened, there's a lot of livestock that come in, right? So these three events, you could see them happening, whether you're in India, Pakistan, right, or any other country, you would see all these things happening. And the reason for that is the next one, is the world population, right? You would see the world population in 1960s is 3 billion. And in 2050, we're expecting 9.6 billion, right? Now, hence, all these things happen, okay? And the consumption, the increase in consumption is really utilizing the natural resources, okay? So that's one of the main reasons for our deforestation, right? We say causes of deforestation: clearing land to build houses, felling of trees for wood, agriculture, and other land uses, right? So whether it's mining projects, industrial projects, right? We use a lot of forest for all of that, either in the form of wood or in the form of take over the land itself. Okay? Any questions so far?
No, it's okay.
No. Yeah. So, this is quite. If you look at this industry, and if you can kind of immerse yourself in this industry and think of it as, even if you relate it to your own home country and think, actually what has happened. What has happened? I know most of you are Indians and from Pakistan and India, so that's why I'm just referring to Pakistan and India all the time. So it's kind of, what's happened in these countries. The population has increased significantly. The population is utilizing more and more resources, right? So as a result, there is always, you can see there is a fight between the animals and the people, right? Because the people are encroaching into the animal land. And then you see, there's a lot of elephants, you say, in India. I don't know about Pakistan, whether you guys have elephants. I'm not sure. Sorry, I don't know about it. But I know in India, there's a lot of elephants. And there is villages where the villagers go and kill the elephants, because they say, well, they're destroying our plants, right? So actually, it's the people who have encroached upon the animals' land. Now we go into the environmental and economic impact. Right? So this is what's happening around the world. Okay, you see there is a lot of soil erosion taking place, and you could see that disruption of water cycles. Now there is a huge debate in Australia about the gas. Right? There are lots of companies who've gone into oil and gas, but extracting the gas out of the earth. There is a huge debate amongst the stakeholders. The main reason is they are stating, well, you are disrupting the water table, right? Which is, in fact, maybe correct because you're taking something out. So now they're scientifically proving, well, it's actually not disrupting the water table. Yet to be seen. Because this kind of impact we could only see after 50, 60, 100 years, right? We will not see them immediately, right? Reduced biodiversity, climate change, we will see what's happening because of this forest being cut and, people going into the forest land, what is going on. There's a huge thing about climate change, disruption of livelihoods as well. Any questions so far? Have I got anybody here who's ever done farming, or anyone who's got acres and acres of land who knows about it? Because I have been in the city, so I don't know anything about farming or forestry, but only reading about it. Have I got anyone here who's in that sort of space?
No.
Right. So all of us are city slickers. Right. we are the ones who consume, right? We are the ones who have like one person having 3 cars, right? Especially the ones. Especially the ones in the Middle East, right? Yeah, and also in the Middle East, as compared to, for example, in Australia, the vehicles are very cheap, right? So then, of course, then we'll have a car for the weekend, car for the week, during the week. Then we have to have our 4-wheel drive. So we are the culprits. Right. Now, when we look at just to kind of put it into perspective, bringing some pictures, and you can see this poor thing. It is quite sad, actually, all these animals, what's going on and what's happening. And in fact, it is impacting us as human beings. The animals will face it first, but it will come to us the next phase, right? And that is the worst part. And you could see a lot of people nowadays, they do develop quite a lot of sicknesses, etc. And one of the main reasons are the air, purely the air that we breathe. I need you to sort of mute your mic, please. Thank you. And reduction in biodiversity. That's another aspect. Now, why do you think we're so crazy about this biodiversity? Why should we be interested in it? Any answers?
Because forests are a source of biodiversity.
Right. What happens? You know, there is a program on TED Talks. There is a talk where one of the experts, scientists, states, if we take off all the insects in the world, within 50 years, the human race will die. Now, that's pretty strange. But if you take off the human race out of the planet will survive, right? And actually, it will be much better. Guys, can you switch off can you mute your mic, please? Thank you. The disruption of the water cycle is another huge issue for us. And you can see this especially in areas like Nigeria, right? Where, I mean, I had quite a few students. I was doing a different program for quite a few students from Nigeria, and they were quite opposed to what Shell is doing and what they are doing with regards to taking out oil and gas and how the earth is treated, how the output of it just gets put into the rivers, and there is you destroy the entire water, you pollute it. There is no fish, as well as if people drink that water, the people get sick as well. So you see this happening, and that's where companies need to become good corporate citizens. I've seen this YouTube video called The Corporation. It's about 2 hours long. You can watch it. It's quite interesting because it shows how companies, are kind of corporate psychopaths, how they behave in certain countries, and like, for example, in the African continent, and how these companies behave in places like Australia. Now, the same company will have different ways of working in Nigeria and in Australia. Now, this is where a question, an ethical question may pop up, right? And, where you have to state that, well, as a good corporate citizen of the world, you need to have a standard way of working, not have double, triple standards of working. Okay? And we look at, okay, so what we mentioned in the previous slide was stating, well, there is a lot of, what does the forest give us? And what do we do to the forest? And especially, this is in light of the increased population. So actually, this case study is quite a philosophical topic, where it is quite interesting in that sense, because it is quite relevant, in fact, today as well as for many years to come. Okay? So as a corporation, what would you do? If corporations have the ability to destroy the world's rainforests, they have the power to help save them, right? Very powerful statement, right? How can somebody, let's go into an airline, because in the Middle East, we have a lot of airlines, okay? So let's say we have top airlines in the world. How would you, if you were Wood, a senior executive from Wood, and if you are looking at, expanding, how would you approach these big airlines? What would be your pitch? Anybody?
Hello.
Yeah. So
You can cut down on ticketing, for instance, and do electronic ticketing. One way of saving paper.
right, yeah. We already have it. We already
Yes,
have it.
yes.
Yes. So what else can you work? Can you do? What do we use in the airline? What is 60% of our cost in an airline?
Fuel.
Fuel?
Exactly. So there is no getting out of that, right?
Yes.
So how would you work with the airline with this?
Try to cut down the fuel cost.
I want another example, please.
Efficient fuel consumption?
Yes, efficient fuel consumption, but also then you look at, working with the airline to say, well, you're using X amount of carbon, all right? You can do a carbon audit as well and say, right, you're using X amount. Now, this is your carbon footprint, okay? If you're with wood, you can work with these guys and say, well, how shall we work together to increase your brand and say, this is how you are these are the projects that you're involved in, right? To reduce the carbon footprint, right? Suddenly, it is not as sexy as supporting, for example, a top football club. However, you are getting quite a lot of attention, right? What we as Wood are trying to do is capture one of the big brands, right, to work with them, okay, on spreading the message of managing forestry and the importance of it, as well as getting them involved and then reducing their carbon footprint, right? So that's one thing that you can look at. And I've just picked up one company, one industry, right? So as corporations, not only do you need, you really don't need to go full on into, you yourself need not go full on into forestry management, but you can use experts like Wood. So this is where there's huge opportunities for Wood. Okay? And the other factor I'll come into that is the taxes. Right? So a lot of the countries, I think all countries are giving tax exemption, right? So therefore, it's a fantastic investment as well. Okay? So the governments are able to enact ambitious domestic and international forest policies that have wide-ranging effects. Now, government can play a significant role here by providing the tax exemptions and even bringing up policies supporting, then coming up with grants and etc. Right? So that is, they can play a massive role as well. And then we as individuals, right, we can play a significant role. So again, how can Wood include individuals? What ways can we include massive amount of people? What is the best way what's the platform that we can use? Anybody?
Reducing waste?
Yes. The thing is, we need to communicate, right? We need to communicate.
We can use brand ambassador, key figure.
Sorry?
We can use a key figure in the celebrity in the world as a brand ambassador of our company, like to make awareness of the better use of the forest management.
Yes. that's one of the things. So another one that we can look at ongoing basis is we need to look at our social media strategy, right? So we can use, say for example, we can use not only things like Facebook, Twitter, right? Pinterest, YouTube. We can use all these platforms, and we can also encourage people like students from universities to come in and work with us on these social media strategies. They themselves will start little, blogs, or even carrying out competitions, so they can get involved in the company, right? So in that sense, they become quite active. And a very good example of this is where Emirates is encouraging their cabin crew to be the brand ambassadors on Instagram, right? The social media platform. So we've got, like, let's say at Emirates, 25,000 cabin crew. They are traveling all over the world, and they've been trained how to post these things on Instagram. So you can imagine the number of activity that's happening. So we really need not employ a certain group of people just to do our social media strategy. You need to come up with some innovative ways of doing these activities, right? You need to involve community. So as in this case, we're talking about community. So we involve community. We are involving in our social media strategy as well, but also then we send out that communication and educating them at the same time, right? So we're educating them on how to use recycled products, be conscious of the food choices that you make, go paperless, right? These are some of the key aspects that we are looking at. Any questions?
No.
Okay, so let's go to the next. Right. Now, the next one in our case study is about this tree that they talk about, right? Sitka spruce. Now, this is in most common in Irish forestry because it has wet soil, right? It is strong wood, straight grain. Those are the characteristics of it. And what do we use it for? For structural timber, paper making, flooring, fiberboard, chipboard manufacturing. So it's pretty good, It can be used for so many things, right? Now you can see this last comment that I've got here. Sitka spruce has a yield class of 14, where oak can be as low as 4. That means this thing grows pretty fast, right? It matures pretty fast. So as a result, it's a good thing for us because we can harvest it pretty quickly rather than you plant oak and stay on for like 150 years. Okay? Any questions on this?
No. Sorry.
Now, the next one we talk about is why are we looking at forestry as an investment? Yes, we know there is a moral issue linked to forestry, and we also know it is really important as human beings for us to have forests, because without the forest, we will die, we will disappear. So in that sense, it is quite important. However, what we've found out is it is a fantastic investment. And the guys who are in the banks, and even all of you here, you can look at, well, you can have a forestry as a good investment because it does give a good yield, right? And this graph is from the economics, right? So you can see, very clearly the forestry is giving us very good returns, right? And then, if in the next particular diagram, it shows, well, what is if you own a forest, what are the benefits of it, right? So there is a lot of things related to income tax. This is in Ireland, but in most other countries as well, you have similar taxation benefits where you don't get taxed on the income that you make, right? There is no capital gains tax as well. So you might be in a good position where you start growing the trees, and when the trees are quite mature, like 25 years or so, you can sell this property. The property value itself would have gone up, plus the tree value, right? The value of the tree has increased because from growth, it has grown 25 years, right? But you will not get taxed on any of these things, which is fantastic. Relatively risk-free status, level of returns achievable. Forestry is an investment, it is diversified from other traditional asset class, right? So which is again a good asset to have, because in your portfolio, it's unlike real estate or stocks. It is completely different assets that you've got. So it is pretty good to have in your portfolio. Any questions so far?
No.
Right. So this is, I focused on Ireland because there is a lot going in Ireland, and it seems like our particular company is also maybe based there, or maybe in Europe, another country. So, but it is in that kind of region, right? It's quite interesting to read it, especially the last paragraph. In order to achieve this, increase the forest area by 15,000 hectares per annum from 2016 to 2046 in order to support a long-term sustainable roundwood supply of 7 to 8 million cubic meters of timber per annum is a recommended policy. So this means this particular country, they're encouraging more and more people to invest in forestry, or companies to invest in forestry as well, and then increasing the forest land, right? In order to do that, of course, always government has to support, and which they are doing in this case, right? And also the other aspect of it is the government sees a lot of benefits out of it. So why invest in forestry? It's a land-based asset, long-term capital growth. So remember, when we come to some other slides, remember this aspect. It's a long-term capital growth. So it's a long-term investment. Favorable tax status, right? Growing domestic and export markets. Predictable growth rates. No high-risk green investment. So we will come to some of the risks as well, as we discussed. And this gives you, how do you look at the returns? Total forestry return is comprised of 5 main components. Now, this is quite important for you to understand, okay? Because you have to use these principles when you're writing your case study, the answers, because this is related to your particular industry. Right? It is not in theory anywhere else, but this is as per the industry. Okay? So the total forestry return is calculated, the acquisition, biological growth, active management, price trends, and forestry value changes. So these 5 things need to be considered, right? to calculate your return. So there are a number of ways, methods to value forestry. One is transaction-based, cost-based, liquidation approach, expectation approach using the discounting factor, right? And in my research, what they have, and I read a lot of documents, what they stated was they prefer the discounted cash flow, right? So discounted cash flow is the most appropriate methodology as it provides a clearer, more transparent valuation for a particular forest to both the vendor and the purchaser, right? So you can if there is a question on forestry valuation on if they are thinking of buying certain land for forest, right? So these are the components that you need to consider. That is 5 aspects we spoke about earlier. Plus, again, you will support it by saying you need to use the discounting factor and the reasonings behind it as well. You can provide it, okay? Because it does, I think one of the students the other day, you mentioned that you should not just consider the discounting factor that is given, right? You need to kind of critique it and say, what about the funding? How are you going to fund it? So what is the weighted average cost of capital that you're going to be, that's there currently? And in relation to that, what is the discounting factor? How does that compare, right? You need to think of those. You need to, with the discounting factor, you need to think of the risks because there is a risk component attached to it as well. And again, a discounting factor in one particular country may be different to that of another for the same kind of investment, okay? So you need to know a little bit about the discounting factor. Try to critique it, but in this case, a bit more positive, right, if there is an exam question. Because it is, as per the research, discounting factor is the methodology that they use. So again, going into forestry valuation, right, how do we value it, right? The basic methodology is given here. Right? Now, you look at the yield models, timber prices. This will give us the timber revenue, okay? We have to consider the risks and assumptions, okay? Then we also look at the grant premiums, the cost components, okay? You look at the discounted revenues and discounted costs, then you arrive at this forest valuation itself. So the most important factors in the investment analysis that affect forestry valuation are the species, quality, forest premiums payable, discount rates, long-term log prices, productivity management regimes, harvesting schedules, harvesting costs, environmental considerations, management charges, and road construction costs. Right? So again, we are looking at your particular industry. This will not be there in your theories at all. Right? It is related to your forestry industry, and that's why you need to research an industry which is related to your company. That's wood. Any questions here?
About the carbon credit.
Sorry?
About the year do you want to consider the carbon credit?
Which year?
I mean the future carbon credit of our investment line.
Right. So when it starts giving us, when it comes to the growth, so once you start growing, right, you wouldn't start your carbon credits at that point, right? So there would be authorities who will that will be, you would not have to bother about that, but I understand you're asking for, for curiosity. So to say we need to it's like the auditors, these guys will come in and look at our property, our the trees, and then say, okay, from this point onwards, you can get carbon credits, but all the time they will be monitored, right? There will be audits. In order for you to get a carbon credit, there has to be audits that take place, right? Similar to that of, if you are a polluter, similarly, they come in and they audit you, right? Both ways there are audits that take place, right? Another interesting aspect here is it says valuations have become more accurate in the past 10 years. Forestry valuation is more sophisticated in the past than in the past. Forestry is more widely recognized as an investment asset class. The arrival of private forestry in Ireland led to the need to more accurately value forestry assets from both a transaction perspective, but also for succession planning, right? Now, the interesting aspect here is the valuation has become more accurate, plus people and companies are investing in forestry as an asset class, right? They are investing, this was not there in the past 20 years. I don't think it was there, it was that prominent, but now it's become one of the preferred assets, right, to invest in. And especially now they could show those figures, right, the past 20 years, how the forestry, the valuation, how they have increased. So we said we will look at biomass and what biomass is all about, right? It is renewable, low carbon fuel. Now, in this is the UK context is taken, but it's the same thing everywhere else, right? Basically, what we do is, if you look at the last slide here, biomass is defined as organic matter, especially plant matter that can be converted to fuel and is regarded as potential energy source. Now, what happens is in a forest, they will harvest the trees, and there is a lot of the stumps, the branches, etc., that's there, okay, on the forest ground. What they say is you can use all of these to create fuel, right? So this is an aspect that they are championing currently and stating, well, focus on this. We can get extra revenue out of it. Now, from wood has not even mentioned this. Right? This could be a potential revenue generator, okay? And this might also be a potential investment project, okay? So it is quite good for you to kind of go through this, understand at a high level what is biomass. Right? It says, what is it? A sustainable fuel that can deliver significant reduction in net carbon emissions when compared with fossil fuels. Right? But one of the students also mentioned, I think, at the nowadays the fuel prices are pretty low, right? So therefore, biomass might not, from a price perspective, it might not be the most competitive, right? Then this is where wood needs to look at different ways of manufacturing, right? Different ways of processing this into fuel. so that it can be much cheaper than the current fuel prices, the traditional fuel. Any questions?
And see that retaining biomass, the forest itself also you are having a risk of getting fire, exposed to the fire also.
Correct. Absolutely right. Because you're leaving that kind of the debris, everything there, but just keeping it there, there is a risk.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's go to the next one. Investment, forestry as an asset class. And this is from another source where they quite clearly say this is teak wood. The return of teak wood is quite significant, right? So just for you to get an understanding, well, investing in forestry is good business, right? It gives you good capital return as well as it's good for the environment. Okay, there's another diagram to show you, where does timber, where is S&P, right? Where is U.S. Treasury? Where do they sit? Okay, right. So that is about. I've just completed the industry analysis. In short, what sort of an industry is this? It does take a long time, right? It's not something we get into and get out pretty soon, right? So if you look at Porter's 5 forces, you can see, well, it's not something that we can get in and get out pretty fast, okay? It's not like a .com. It's not like a internet business that you get in, get out. There is a significant amount of investment from a land perspective, machinery perspective that you will invest. Okay, and it's a long-term investment, and you will also have quite a few stakeholders who are interested in this, from individuals to corporates to NGOs and the governments. Okay, and so it is quite a philosophical debate as well, and a business, a very good business that we are getting into. And wood can then be categorized as a very good corporate citizen. And they're also, in their values, they have mentioned that they want to be classified or known to be, to have a good brand, good corporate citizenship. So it kind of links very well, these activities, this industry links well to that image. Okay. Now, I've taken from E3, P3, and F3 some of the key areas, and I'm trying to link it to the industry analysis. Okay. So the first thing is, what type of model would we use, right? If you're doing a strategy formulation, what type of model would we use? A rational model, emergent strategy, or freewheeling opportunism, right? Any guesses? So in this case, we will be, sorry, go ahead.
Emergent strategy.
Why would you say emergent strategy?
Because trading biomass and others, like today's oil prices are the lowest, the fossil fuels, and there are so many players, there is no possibility of chances of increasing the oil price in the near future, because the players are more and the demand is constant really. The thing
Right.
is that here in this case, if biomass, and now there is a lot of, in this part of the world also, a lot of emphasis is given on clean fuel, and a lot of
Yes.
investment is coming up in this part of the world regarding clean fuel, especially in Kuwait.
Right.
A lot of investments are there. The
Right.
thing is that biomass is a very cheap source of clean fuel. If it can be produced in a commercial way in a large scale, then
Yes.
utilizing this emergent strategy, the corporation and the individuals of that of wood and others, if they can do it,
Yes.
the profitability will increase in a substantial fashion.
Right. Anyone else? Anyone else? So there would be a mixture of emergent as well as the rational model, right? And the reason for that is because this is something that you invest long term, right? And there are quite a few things that you need to consider when you're going in, right? Whether even especially if you're going into different countries as well, it's not something as easy as getting in and getting out. You need to invest a lot of money, so you need to analyze quite a bit. You need to see whether how supportive the government is, right? And therefore, that we have, in this case, I have chosen the rational model, but also we can, like Anand mentioned, we can look at the emergent, we can use both models, right? There is nothing wrong with it. And what you're saying is because you need to consider, be agile enough to consider the emerging technologies that are coming in, right? And we said we'll have to use this kind of new technologies in order to reduce the cost, right? And also from a HSC perspective, right? Any other questions or comments?
In here, I mean, in this, majorly, what I find in this type of example is that you have to utilize the models in a specific way so that they understand that we know the models and others. So, can you just, regarding what we can use, what the models, like.
So if you're looking at a strategy, let's say, right, you're going into a particular project. You are going into, let's say, they're saying there is an opportunity for you to go into Romania, right, or to purchase, and they're part of EU, right? So it's easy. There is problems in Romania with regards to forestry management, etc. Right? So if you are looking at that country as a market that you want to go into, what kind of model that you will be? You will look at it as from a you will look at the rational model, because the reasoning behind it is you need to figure out, well, does it link this opportunity, does it link to our mission, vision? You have to carry out the environmental analysis, right? You can't just go in. The risks are too high, okay? You need to carry out, what about the goals of the stakeholders, right? Not only Romania, what about your stakeholders? Because your stakeholders may say, listen, I'm not interested in Romania, right? So you need to understand your stakeholders as well, because you will have stakeholders who are shareholders as well as your clients, okay? Remember, there are two types who will be very strong people, right? So for example, I will give you a good example, nothing to do with this industry. Now, in Australia, the people are very much against Australian Army participating and working with the US Army, right? On any missions. And because one of the key things what the people of Australia are saying is, we came to this country leaving our home country, right, because we wanted peace. We came further away. So now the soldiers are going to fight something else. Why should you do it? There's a lot of opposition. Now, I'm not here to debate whether it is a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm saying this is what the stakeholders are saying. There are people who are for it, there are people who are against it, right? But you need to consider when you're going into a project of this magnitude, any project, what your shareholders' views are, especially if you're going out of the country. Because they may think you're using their money, which is true, right? And then something happens and you lose everything, okay? There is a big change in the government. Let's say you're going to Indonesia, right? Indonesia, huge opportunities as well as there are risks, right? In this case, the government changes and all the whole scenario, the advantages that you thought that you're going to get change, right? So in this aspect, you need to be quite careful, and that's why we will carry out a rational model, because my investment in this particular project, especially if I'm going into purchasing a land, forestry, right, is very long term. Right? Now, if I'm going into consulting, right, consulting, that is a different product altogether, right? You need to be careful. You need to be cognizant of what type of product and the investment that you are going to outlay, right? Now, in a consulting, if you say that is, you need to say, this is only my knowledge I'm taking. It's my people, right? If that is what you're exporting, right? Then you can look at it in a different way. Okay? But if you are looking at purchasing land and having joint venture partnerships, maybe even with countries of that nature in Indonesia or anywhere else, you need to think of it in a very long term. Yeah? Does it answer your question?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah? So consulting, I can get in, get out pretty fast. Yeah? So in that case, it's an easier thing for me to manage.
Yeah.
Now, if you're looking at biomass, now if I'm going into biomass projects, right, what do you think I will do? What would be my approach if I'm going into that?
Well, biomass to produce, you have to produce it commercially. I don't know, how much of the quantity you can produce really compared to phosphorus.
What I'm asking is the approach, right? I have, let's say, as wood, I have the raw material. I have never done it. What is my approach? What would I do? And I know this is the future, right? So what would I do?
I have to get the technology first. Invest in the technology through any venture capitalist or get investments from outside, from banking sector, so that we can the technology can be purchased, because automatically you have to pay an amount for that, and then the recurring costs are there for the technologies. Then there is evaluation of the bank or equity participation. This comes that, and then after you get the technology, what your cost are, and then see how much, whether you can price it below the fossil fuel price at the current stage. Only then it will be profitable.
Yes. Now, I would recommend that you state that you will partner with somebody else to do this activity, because my risk is pretty low. I will partner with one of the best or the leading biomass companies, either within the country or get somebody from outside to come and work with us. Right, joint venture partnership, because my risk is going to be pretty low. Otherwise, it's not that I can't do it because I have the raw material. I may have the raw material, I may have the money, but I do not have the skills and the know-how. For me to build that, for me to upskill, it's going to take a lot of time. I will make mistakes as well. Right? Therefore, the quickest way into this would be I will have joint ventures or partner, basically partner with somebody. Yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. The next one, I think we went we looked at the risks as well, the strategic, operational, financial, and hazardous risks. Right. This particular, again, this industry does have quite a few risks associated with it. Right. So you need to also understand the risk appetite, the attitude, the risk capacity of that particular company. Okay, and how would you manage this risk? Right? You have to manage it as an enterprise risk management perspective. Okay, we went through this one as well, so I will not delve too much in it. These are the two models that one is the CORSO model, this is the CORSO model, and this is a CIMA risk management cycle, right? Basically what we're saying is identify the risk areas, understand, develop risk response strategy, right? Implement strategy and allocate responsibilities. So implement and monitor the controls, right? Review, refine, and so it doesn't end, we go through the cycle. Okay. This is the TARA model. Again, we did go through this before at a high level. So when you are looking at the enterprise-wide risk, you need to basically first prioritize and then look at, how are we going to deal with it? Accept, transfer, reduce, or avoid. Depends on the frequency and the severity of it. Okay. Right. The governance. Now, the governance does play a big role here. We know the composition of the directors. We look at in this they say in our textbook it's stated we need at least a minimum 4 committees, and they are the remuneration, nomination, audit, and risk. But in this case, as per our industry, we and the company that we're in, we may go into some extra ones as well, right? And that's what I had mentioned. I had given this to you, where it says we have an executive committee, investment committee, right? So these are some of the extra committees that have come up, and there is a reasoning behind it. It's because of the type of industry in the company. Okay. And I'm putting these roles so that the roles of the directors and the board, because there would be a question, on this for sure, so that at a glance you're able to kind of get a high-level view of this is the kind of roles that these guys are supposed to play, right? So directors' abilities and performance is relevant. They have to have relevant expertise, mix of experience, diversity on board, appropriate training, assess board performance at least once a year. Now, these are some of the governances that can be introduced. You saw there are some new members to the board, so you can recommend that if there is a question, you can say assess board performance at least once a year. How have they performed in this board? What have they brought in, right? What is the value addition that they have brought in? Okay. Any questions here?
No.
Okay. And this, again, role of non-executive directors, important one, right? You see the advantages and you see the disadvantages as well, right? What is the role? The role is to look at the strategy, scrutiny, the risk management, board personnel. These are the activities that they perform. You need to see, I don't know what will come in your unseen. So some of the NEDs, what type of role they're performing, right? maybe it maybe in your unseen one there might be some things around the NEDs and the activities that they do. So keep in mind this, what role they have to perform and also the advantages, right? Any questions? And look at this, majority should be independent, no business, financial connection, no share options or pensions. Right? This is quite interesting where the disadvantages is limited time, right? Difficult to impose views. And you see, it seems like the chairman is in two different boards, am I right? So he's quite powerful. So what kind of influence these NEDs have is a question to me. Okay. The ethical risks are the other factors to be considered. The reason for this is because if you are, as wood, asked to go into a country, where there is a lot of bribery, corruption, how would you? I mean, it's the norm. A lot of the African countries, it is the norm for them to bribe people to get something done, right? Some of the Asian countries as well. So, but if wood is not, either wood needs to make a decision how we're going to work with this, right? So they have to be conscious of this factor as well. They cannot say, disassociate themselves from a particular activity. Like once Nike said when they were accused of child labor, where they said, well, we were not aware, right? So this is ethical risks are bribery, bid rigging, right? So you have to be complied with this UK Bribery Act, US Bribery Act, and different acts even in Europe. So if you're a company that's domiciled in European geography, you need to comply to those rules and regulations as well. Okay? And they are quite conscious about their reputation. So you can see there's risks related to that as well. Okay. So this, I've brought in the CIMA ethics again, so that it's easier for you to go through. And then I have said how to answer an ethics question, right? How to gain marks. We went through it before. Again, I have come into this because be careful. This is an easy way to collect marks, right? And there will be ethics questions in your exam. So always try to, answer it appropriately, because you may answer the ethics question, but not in an appropriate manner, right? As in, you have not identified the facts. You have not given a recommendation or a justification, right? So you've lost marks completely. You think you have answered, but actually you've not. So be careful. Now, I thought of bringing this into your attention, big data. Why do you think big data is important?
Big data is basically when you analyze voluminous data. I mean, when you need a software to analyze it properly, because
What
it will
type
take.
of volume are we talking about? In a forestry. Now let's put it into perspective, right? Now we are managing a forest, right? So what type of big data are we talking about?
Detail of the forest, we have like age of the forest and especially for evaluation purposes, we need that one.
Correct. So we are. Sorry, you need to mute your mic because there's a echo. Yeah, correct. because now, as you can see, each tree is like a person, a living being, right? So what they will do is to track information about each tree. There is also issues pertaining to, the trees being sick, there's insects, all these things can happen to a tree. So it's, as I said, it's a living being, right? So instead of sending out people, to kind of go and see what's going on in the forest, right? You can collect all this data, right? We have latest technology where we can collect all this data, but bring it into our big data into the warehouse and try to analyze, right? And other the weather changes as well. So therefore, during different weather, the weather patterns, how does the tree behave, right? And they will have to treat the trees, and they'll have to put in fertilizer, etc., etc. All those, they will have to take a lot of information from these trees. And the best way to do that, the most efficient, is by using big data. So there is a opportunity where you can, if there is a question, you would how to use this big data. Yeah? Any questions so far? Because what it's saying here, again, is it's high volume. There'll be a lot of variety and the velocity, right? So all these things happen. Okay? And let's say, for example, now, if you are doing a project in Indonesia, or in one of the African countries, right? You will not utilize big data from the beginning, okay? And there is a very good reason for this. It's not that you can't use it, right? The reasoning would be, you need to understand what type of equipment will you be putting on these trees, and whether it will be safe, as in, will people just come in and take those equipment, right? And this happened. I did a project in Sudan, and that time they were using some copper pole or whatever it is, for the telecommunication. And this did, they put in these things one day, and the next day they went missing. It's obvious, right? If you are going into a very poor country, and there's a huge poverty issues, and you are installing things where people can take out and sell it for food, people will do it. So you need to see the feasibility of it as well, right? Always look at, if I'm going into a particular country, is it feasible? And the other aspect you need to consider would be the internet availability as well, right? So maybe it is available all over in Europe or in Australia, but not so in the deep jungles of, in Sumatra, for example. So we have to think of those angles. Yeah. Now I'm going into the financial risk. We did explore the financial risks, and we spoke about the interest, the forex aspect of it, right, and the currency aspects of it. Okay, you need to look at the interest rates and things like that as well. We will have a session tomorrow where I will be joined by another lecturer. His focus will be deep down into finance, and he will explore more around this. Okay. The strategic financial management, right? So the investment decisions, the financing decisions, and the dividend decisions, these are three things are key to the strategic financial management, right? Now, how, if it's an investment decision, how would you invest it, right? It has an impact on your dividends as well, right? As you can see, right? And then if you're looking at the financing decisions, how would how would you do the performance analysis, the forecasting, right? And the requirements of it as well. And again, this will have an impact on both dividends and the investment decisions, right? And the dividend decision has taxation aspects as well related to it. And in our wood scenario, there might be, the investment, even though they're going into big investments, you could encourage other investors to come in purely because there is taxation benefits, right? So this could be a way of communicating to some of your key investors, prospective investors, and to talk to them about the taxation benefits. Okay. So I thought this is quite important for you because we have the potential of going international as well, right? What are the things that you need to consider? The taxation influences domestic as well as international. How does it work? Because what you have in a domestic situation may not apply to international situations. Be careful, right? Don't think, well, because it's domestic, it is favorable. It is going to happen the same way. It will be the same way in Indonesia as well. It may not be. Okay. Well, I thought of bringing this treasury management mainly because there was nothing that was said on treasury, and we will be exposed to quite a bit of foreign forex activities as well as investments and things like that. So I thought better bring it in so that you're aware what this treasury management, what they're supposed to do, all right? And especially, we generally management accountants don't go heavily into treasury, so I thought it's important for us in this class to kind of get a view of treasury management, right? So the treasury management will look at corporate financial objectives, and the corporate financial objectives related to the finance, right? Then liquidity management. They will manage the working capital, banking relationships, cash transmission, cash investments, right? They are the ones who will manage this whole activity. Funding of different projects. So since they have the relationship with the banks as well, it will help them to do that. Currency management and corporate finance. Now, this is, again, quite an important aspect for wood because they may go internationally. Right? They may do consulting. They may get money from overseas. And they will have to invest in other foreign currencies, countries. So then, what is the best way of funding that? Should I get a loan from that country? Or should I, get a loan from our own country and then repatriate the money, right? Send the money over, right? What is the best way, right? So it's important for us to understand that, and that is not done by just normal accountants. That's done by specialist treasury management experts. Okay. And this is where the advantages of central treasury management I have written down. These are some of the advantages. You can just go through it. It's quite self-explanatory, really. And the couple of more slides just to talk to you about, the reporting. One is the sustainability reporting, and the other one is the environmental reporting, right? So sustainability reporting is quite important, and because sustainability plays a significant role in the current industry that we are working in. So have a look at this, because the GRI, or the Global Reporting Initiative, they are encouraging companies to do this type of reporting. And you can see here where they said Global Reporting Initiative provides guidelines and optional sustainability reporting, mandatory for certain kinds of companies in the EU. So our company is in EU, right? I believe it's in the EU. So therefore, you need to be quite aware of this. There would be something on reporting. And environmental reporting, of course, and because it's an easier thing for wood to do, this environmental reporting, but they can also act as experts for other clients of theirs to generate this environmental reporting. Okay, so that's the kind of value-added service that wood can perform. Okay, so that's it for today. Any questions? Any questions? Anybody?
No.
No. All right then. So we'll have a class tomorrow at the same time. And what we will do is I'll have another lecturer with me. He will talk to you a little bit more on financing. All right. And tomorrow's class will be the last one. I will put up a few more mocks between today and tomorrow. So it's up to you for you to go ahead and do the mocks. All right. Okay then. Bye bye.
Yeah, but
Thank
the
you.
other thing is that the mocks, if we just send it to you, will you mark it and send it to us so that we can give an idea?
Yes, I have the people who have done the mocks. I have already given them comments on their answers.
Yeah. What about
When is this?
What about the left? We will write to you and so that we get an idea.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Till when is this link open for the mock test?
I will keep it open. Don't worry till you finish your exams.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right then. Bye bye.
Bye.